is that the ultimate establishment person right now is Donald Trump. He went from winning Michigan to now polling at 33%, has a 33% approval rating. I can't imagine that Donald Trump out on the campaign trail heading into November is going to help Mike Rogers. And for the reason that if people want something different, and especially in a place like Michigan, where they were hit by tariffs, killed manufacturing jobs, cost of living has gone up there, you are looking at the guy who has, essentially caused all of this harm.
Welcome to Ivic's Breakdown. Today, Soelina Hosa goes head-to-head with Scott Jennings on Newsnight with Abby Phillip in a heated discussion about the growing anti-establishment movement, working-class voters, and Donald Trump's influence on both political parties. As Jennings defends the Maga perspective, Hosa pushes back and challenges his arguments with a different view of where American voters are heading. Let's break down this intense political exchange and examine the key moments.
What's your response to what Senator Sanders had to say?
Well, I mean, right at the end, he ultimately said, yes, I want people like Hassan Piker in my political party. We're a big tent. He wants people in the party that say America deserved 9/11. He wants people in his party that are out there idealizing Chairman Mao and the like. I mean, this is not something I would be embracing if I were trying to build a political party that could appeal to, mainstream Americans. I think they're going to deeply regret these associations and this continued demonization of AIPAC. AIPAC is Jewish Americans who are choosing to participate in politics. And let's be honest, they're just using it as a euphemism to say the Jews. I mean, that's what they're doing. And I think
Senator Sanders is Jewish.
Okay, so that doesn't absolve him of demonizing other Americans who simply want to participate in American politics.
So Sochi, I mean, do you think that that's the right, a defensible strategy to say, we're a big tent, and if you don't want certain people in it, you can get out, but everybody else can stand?
Listen, I think that ultimately the voters will decide here. And I think when it comes to AIPAC, I think the reason why that was an effective strategy for Al-Sayed, and we'll see tonight if he actually wins, is because there was $30 million that was being spent in this race. And part of it is that his message was that this race shouldn't be bought. I think that at the end of the day, you're going to see that in politics throughout the country. This is an anti-establishment year. It is cool to be an outsider, whether you're a Republican or whether you're a Democrat. Look at what Donald Trump has done in the Republican Party. You have Cornyn, you have Massey, you have others who were defeated because Donald Trump primaried those people. And so you're seeing the same thing happen on the Democratic side, where people want fighters. They want people who are going to stand up for working families. Now, at the end of the day, these are going to be fights about who can work harder for the American people. And if someone doesn't want to be part of the Democratic Party, they don't have to be part of the Democratic Party. I will say that a lot of the views that are happening and that Al-Sayed stands for and what he has been saying, those views would not resonate with people in Texas. I think if you were to ask in my home state of Texas anything about socialism or DSA or any of these things, not one voter would understand what you're saying. So I do think that every state is different in this sense. People talk about this big tent party. I think it is a matter, the enthusiasm is where are the fighters, whether it's Democrats or Republicans. It's not about party labels anymore, and we have to get over that as a country. People do not like the labels.
I think people are looking at this race totally wrong. First of all, Hassan Piker is not the candidate. Abdul Sayed is. And Donald Trump has associated himself, and many Republicans have associated themselves with questionable people. But those people aren't the candidates either. The candidate has to run for themselves. Whoever wins, I want the Democrat to win that seat. But Donald Trump won Michigan twice. And Donald Trump is so far away from being moderate. Like, we're pretending like we don't live in this country where these extremes, there's nothing about the Republican Party is the Maga party now. And it is Donald Trump. Let me finish. Donald Trump's party. And the Democratic Party is actually reforming itself. And I actually am excited about these debates happening in the Democratic Party, because after 2024 and even leading up into 2024, people were like, who are the Democrats? Now, you don't have to like it, but the reality is there's a lot of people in Michigan tonight that did. And you can talk about Israel and Gaza, but we know there are single issue voters, but there are also people who vote for Medicaid, for housing, to be able to afford gas. And that is what a lot of voters.
Many voters today seem less concerned with political labels and more focused on whether a candidate is willing to challenge a political system they feel has failed ordinary Americans. With public trust in Congress, political parties, and national institutions remaining low, outsider candidates are Many voters today seem less concerned with political labels and more focused on whether a candidate is willing to challenge a political system they feel has failed ordinary Americans. With public trust in Congress, political parties, and national institutions remaining low, outsider candidates are finding new opportunities to gain support across both parties. It's also important to distinguish a candidate from the different people and groups who support them. Political campaigns often bring together voters and activists with very different beliefs. Ultimately, voters are choosing the candidate on the ballot, not every person who endorses or associates themselves with that campaign. Another major issue is the influence of outside spending. Millions of dollars can pour into competitive races through super PACs and other political organizations, raising concerns about whether wealthy donors have too much influence over elections. This frustration crosses party lines, with many voters wanting politicians who are more accountable to their communities than to powerful financial interests. At the same time, everyday economic concerns remain extremely important. Rising prices, healthcare expenses, housing costs, wages, and access to affordable care often matter more to voters than the political culture wars. Dominating television debates. Candidates who focus on these real-life struggles may have a better chance of connecting with working families than those who rely mainly on partisan attacks.
There for about 10 years now, and Republicans have been on the forefront of it. Now it's the Democrats' turn.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. After the Bush years, We went through the first 2 years of Obama, and that gave birth to the Tea Party. That was a lot about inside versus outside.
And the outside won.
And in some cases, and in some cases, the outside nominated people who then lost very winnable Senate races, which delayed the Republicans getting the Senate majority for a couple of cycles. So it's not like that the outsiders are always right about everything. And in this case, in Michigan, if they do nominate Abdul El-Sayed, there's a lot there. There's going to be a bright line between him and Mike Rogers. And it's a race that if Democrats were to lose it in November, it would really complicate their path to taking back the Senate majority. So just because we're living in an anti-establishment world, sometimes the anti-establishment nominates people that are just a little too far outside the mainstream for the voters of a particular jurisdiction. It has happened before.
All those endorsements that came in for Haley Stevens, I'm wondering if they weren't counterproductive from the jump.
Yeah.
When you have the governor endorsing you, when you have the congressional delegation, when you have
But she's popular,
Washington
no, the
endorsing-
governor? I mean,
Whitmer
Yeah,
I
but
think, was
it
helpful.
is like a
Schumer
signal
fits
to
it.
voters
Yeah.
that you
Schumer bad.
Or the establishment. You're a part of the system.
But and I also, Mike, you brought up Mike Rogers, and as we go into a general election, I think one thing to consider is that the ultimate establishment person right now is Donald Trump. He went from winning Michigan to now polling at 33%, has a 33% approval rating. I can't imagine that Donald Trump out on the campaign trail heading into November is going to help Mike Rogers. And for the reason that if people want something different, and especially in a place like Michigan, where they were hit by tariffs, killed manufacturing jobs, cost of living has gone up there, you are looking at the guy who has, essentially caused all of this harm, and Mike Rogers doing whatever he can to help Donald Trump wherever he can. It might be helpful for your base, but I don't know how it is helpful for independent voters and other people in Michigan. And whether he's going to get those people.
I wonder about it, forget where you actually stand on the politics, just strictly practitioners, of how you win a campaign. I also wonder about turnout here, right? So you look at this race, you look at the Texas primary race, you look at the people who might have stayed home the last primary cycle or in 2022. Can a candidate like Stevens or Mike Rogers or Abdul Sayed get them off the couch? Out of all of them, I think that Abdul Sayed is the person who gets those folks who don't regularly vote off the couch because it feels like something different. If it becomes a Rogers and Stevens, I think it is an establishment, just like a Donald Trump versus the Democratic Party. I think the Said and Rogers fight is like a different version of America. Now, whatever you want to describe that version of America is one thing, but it will be like, this is a chance to do something different versus sticking with the status quo. And can you get enough people excited enough?
This political moment reveals something that is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Many voters are gravitating toward candidates who appear willing to challenge the traditional political establishment. That doesn't necessarily mean every outsider has the right answers, but it does show that a growing number of Americans want leaders who will confront a system they believe has overlooked their concerns. Michigan is a clear example of this shift. For many voters, economic issues remain a top priority. Manufacturing communities have dealt with job losses, factory closures, trade uncertainty, and rising living costs, while politicians continue debating ideology. Ordinary families are often more concerned about affording groceries, housing, healthcare, and other everyday necessities. Turnout and enthusiasm could also play a major role. Candidates who motivate people who normally stay home on election day can completely change the outcome of a competitive race. Ultimately, voters are looking for more than familiar political names or party labels. They want leaders who understand the financial pressures affecting their communities and who can offer practical solutions. In today's political environment, authenticity, independence, and a willingness to challenge powerful interests may matter more than simply having the backing of political insiders. Please like, share, and subscribe to Ivic's Breakdown for more political analysis and breakdowns.